Give it a second to start up. Hello and welcome to Don't Bury the Lead. We recap WWE SmackDown every Friday night after the bell. But today rather, a special day as we watch the WWE Night of Champions pay-per-view. Dom, thanks so much for joining today. Go
Yes,
ahead
sir.
and tell the people about yourself.
We saw what was billed as a triple main event, premium live event pay-per-view. But really, there was only one match on this card that felt like a main event.
Yeah.
Without further ado, John, don't bury the lead. What's our top story from WWE Night of Champions, May 27th, from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia?
I'll tell you what, Dom, we don't ever bury the lead. We don't. No way. No how. Top story is Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens going over Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. And like we've seen a lot now, just a huge schmodge in these
Yes.
Bloodline matches where there's all this adversity and all the storyline built in the main event. Similar to a couple pay-per-views back in Montreal when we saw this. So a lot going on here, but at the end of the day, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens retain and the Bloodline seemingly falls apart. So two
Yes.
stories really. Probably the biggest being that the Bloodline is really falling apart here. Dom, what do you think? What did you think of this show here?
First, just to make sure we get it on the record there, Sami Zayn pins Solo Sikoa to retain for him and Kevin Owens here. Like you're saying, big schmoz at the end, but the Bloodline, since they got Sami Zayn in the Bloodline about a year ago, it's really elevated the story. And not only has it elevated the story, but every time they've given one of the guys a chance to step up and be in the spotlight, they've succeeded. Like Roman was over already, super over, already had the belts. Then Sammy joins, and Sammy and Jay Uso get a chance to be in the spotlight, and they crush it.
Yeah.
And now, for the last month or so, it's been Jimmy Uso who's had a chance to step up. And I've been so impressed with Jimmy's work. I think Jimmy has been fantastic the last month or so as the guy who's now the guy at the center of the storm in a sense in the Bloodline, and he does it again tonight. It's the Usos run out from the crowd to attack Kevin Owens, who had been beating up on Roman Reigns outside the ring. They get back in the ring, the Usos do, after laying out Kevin Owens on the outside.
Right.
Dumping the announce table on him. The Usos hit the ring and super kick Sami Zayn, one each of them. Then they're going for a double super kick as Solo stalks back into the ring. Sammy ducks it. They super kick Solo Sikoa, and now they're just standing there like they know they messed up. Roman Reigns sees it from the outside, and here's where everything breaks down. And of course, they had a ref bump to allow all this to happen. And then, like you're saying, the Bloodline just breaks down. Roman gets in the ring, and he is furious at Jimmy and Jay. And eventually, after shoving Jay out of the way, Roman gets a super kick from Jimmy, who's had enough. It was Jimmy's breaking point. The thing we thought we were going to see from Jay at Royal Rumble, and then maybe at Elimination Chamber, and then maybe at a few other spots in between those pay-per-views and after those pay-per-views, we finally get it from Jimmy. And Jimmy turns to Jay and says, "This is what you should have done a long time ago." The Usos leave the ring, go back up the ramp, and that allows the match to finish.
I'll tell you what, it's been a slow burn, but well worth it.
Yes,
Similar
right.
where you knew at some point that the Uso brothers were going to do something because they have just been belittled SmackDown after SmackDown. They're
Mhm.
getting yelled at by Roman Reigns. He's treating them like a little kid who had detention, and they have to explain why they got detention, and he's been just it's been hilarious too. So he's been
Yes.
humiliating them. So you knew at some point they were going to turn. Um, but yeah, so I think it was great. Other things about the match specifically that stood out is for me, Sami Zayn is still way over.
Yes.
Um, really, and he's specifically really over in Jeddah tonight or
Yes.
today rather. I keep saying tonight.
Mhm.
Today rather.
Tonight for them. It's nighttime there.
Yeah. Pretty cool entrance from him wearing the whole outfit. I don't know what that outfit is called, but
Mhm.
um and speaking in their native tongue, and I don't know what their native tongue is, so I'm not going to
Some
embarrass
sort of
myself.
Arabic. Yeah, yeah. That was cool. Paul Heyman grabs the mic out of the ring announcer's hand to announce the Bloodline because he always does that. And then
Mm,
Sammy returns the favor. He announces himself and Kevin Owens in what seemed like Arabic to the local crowd loved it and loved Sammy. And wasn't this so fantastic to see? Because for years Sammy could not travel to Saudi Arabia because after a blowup with the Syrian civil war, Sammy is ethnically Syrian. His family history traces back through Syria, even though he's from Montreal, Canada. And Sammy is Muslim. This was a big trip for him going back to Jeddah, being able to visit Mecca. And yes, like you're saying, wearing a more of a traditional Arab Muslim um, overgarb out to the ring tonight. He has regular ring gear on, but over the top of the entrance. Um, Sammy, you wouldn't have known that, just a month ago, Syrians were not allowed to travel to Saudi Arabia because of a big political dust up over the Syrian civil war dating back more than a decade. Syria being kicked out of the Arab League, which is, yeah, maybe like the European Union or NATO or whatever in other parts of the world. Um, but that gets resolved early May. Suddenly, Sammy can go to Night of Champions, and now he's received as if he's a local hero. What is statement about what just the ordinary people think about and how distant it is from what politicians are doing. I mean,
right.
Sami Zayn receives a hero's welcome in a place where a month ago he was forbidden from setting foot anywhere near it.
Yeah, and I didn't know what the reaction would be due to the political climate.
Neither did
I
I.
actually kind of assumed, I don't know if he's going to get booed or silenced or what, but he had the pop of the night and they was way,
Yes.
way over. And we had seen some of that earlier before, like in the pre-show when you had sent me
Yes.
some stuff like they did a press conference and people were going nuts for him at the press conference. So
Mm-hmm.
um and the crowd wasn't particularly crazy like we've seen in the foreign shows when they're in Puerto Rico or Montreal. But for
Mm-hmm.
Sami Zayn, he was certainly over with the Jeddah crowd.
This was the only match of the night to me that felt like it had a clear babyface heel dynamic.
Yeah,
Everything else was almost a tweener match.
it's
Maybe Mustafa Ali had a little bit of a more pop to him in the Gunter match, but this match was the only one that stood out to me like, yeah, this is babyface versus heel, and the wrestlers are playing it up. Roman was brilliant all match working heel, not just working Roman, doing his normal Roman Reigns stuff, but working heel against his opponents, against the crowd. This felt like a main event.
Yeah. And it's cool to see Roman really getting some heel heat because he's been a champion for a while.
Mhm.
Sometimes he gets cheers and mostly boos, but then some cheers because
Mhm.
people that win, the crowd have a tendency to cheer for. But he was really getting some red hot boos.
Mhm.
And it's interesting you mentioned that. I noticed that earlier in the night too. Um, a lot of tweener matches, not like a clear set, like this is the face, this is the heel. Like a good example is even like the opener with Seth Rollins and AJ Styles. I didn't really get
Okay.
big. heel presence there and a big face presence. Like it just kind of felt in the middle. But
Two
yeah,
baby faces in that match. So those are guys who coming into this were kind of baby faces. So it wasn't clear to the crowd who was who. And neither one of them played heel really. Neither one of them played overly over the top baby face. This match here at the end, this main event match, the real main event, the last match, stellar work by everybody involved. I mean, did you think there was a weak spot from anybody in this match?
no, I think it was solid, and I thought the pacing was pretty good. And this is one of those matches where it's not really about the work and all the different spots and setting it up. This is pure soap opera stuff where people are kind of coming in and it's all based on the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they did a pretty good job playing that up. And the storyline has been built so much that they can just go slow and steady in these matches. And that's what they did, is just go really slow. And there's just a level of intensity for them to really do nothing. So kudos really to the creative team and then the guys involved, like making the storyline what it is and keeping it going. And I don't feel like it's stale the way that they keep moving the pieces around on the chessboard here.
Because there's a next chapter. They're not just reruns.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just rerunning the same episode again with the same plot elements. There's always a next chapter, a next chapter. Now we're getting a big next chapter. And you mentioned how good the storyline is and how great the ring psychology was. When you do that, like we saw tonight, and like it looks like you were alluding to, you can get great crowd reaction without it becoming a spot fest. Because
Mm-hmm.
this match was not really a spot fest. And so I enjoyed it. It was more of a wrestling match.
Yeah.
Moves mattered,
Oh, yeah.
impactful spots mattered. It wasn't just, okay, you hit your move. Okay, now I get to hit my move. Oh, now I get to hit my move. Now I get to hit my move. It wasn't like that at all. And a big reason for that, I think, was how great the ring psychology was from these guys.
Mm-hmm.
This was this was the kind of match that maybe you don't see as much in pay-per-views anymore in modern day pay-per-views, but you might have seen more of it years ago, maybe a couple of decades ago, especially 3 decades ago or so, 80s, 90s, in that range there. So this is the kind of match that I enjoyed more because it wasn't spot festy. I liked this match more than I liked the WrestleMania tag title match, which got spot festy on us.
Yeah.
I thought this was a cooler match to watch.
And yes, it did get a little spot festy in the WrestleMania match, but this one specifically, it's got 4 guys in it, and
Mm-hmm.
one of them, was when we first started watching, felt like he was maybe a little green. You didn't know who he was. He wasn't a big name in Solo Sikoa.
Yep.
Do you feel like he's kind of arrived at this point? I mean, having a spot, he has a big spot in the main event of WrestleMania. He's
Mm-hmm.
been involved with the Bloodline. He's in this tag match, and I thought he looked pretty good.
I thought he looked like he belonged in the ring with everybody else who was there, who's got way more experience than he does. WWE just put out a little thing this week, short video clip online of the Usos debut from way back in 2011. So everybody in this match has way more than 10 years of experience, even at a high level, except for Solo, who's been around maybe a year. Maybe he's still within his first year of being on the main roster. And yeah, he looks like he belongs physically. The only thing they haven't let him do is get on the mic and develop his character that way. But as far as being a guy who looks like he belongs in a wrestling match with what he can do physically and with the way he sells at just the right moments, because he's supposed to be this, tremendous rock of a guy. He's the enforcer of the bloodline. It's not supposed to be easy to take him down.
Yeah,
But when it comes time, he sells pretty darn well. He does. He looks like he belongs in the main event of a big pay-per-view like this with Roman Reigns, with the Usos, with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens.
for sure.
And you
Yeah,
noticed that early last year. Like last year, we did our grading video. You noticed that Solo Sikoa was a guy who might be able to break out. Like, have you been in? Has he been what you thought he would be 5 months after we did that grading video?
Yeah, I think he's progressed. I'm glad I gave him a
Okay,
B.
good.
And he may have progressed a little bit. And I'm okay with guys that everybody doesn't have to talk, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So eh, Gunther, for example, like A plus all the time. I don't really need him shooting crazy promos. He doesn't have to
No.
be uh, CM Punk, or he doesn't have to be all these guys that shoot these long-winded promos or whatever. Um, but yeah, so let's move on here
That's
because
a good segue. Do you want to pivot to that match? Because that was the other one match that was closest to a clear heel face dynamic, although it didn't feel main eventy.
um,
Gunther versus Mustafa Ali.
yeah, yeah, let's
Mustafa Ali, it looked like they were handing him this opportunity because of the location of the pay per view. The match only goes about 9 minutes, but it's not totally a squash by Gunther. Gunther looks like a big monster heel, but Mustafa Ali, they do a lot of David and Goliath stuff. Um, did it look like Mustafa Ali at least gave a decent showing of himself in this match?
yeah. I thought it was actually I liked his look coming out.
Okay.
He looked like Sabu, and anytime you
Okay.
can do something like Sabu, I'm a fan of it. So yeah, he came out, and I like the look. The match was solid. It looks like maybe I don't know if they didn't have a lot of time, so they kind of just went home with it, and it was kind of unrealistic that he would be Gunther. So I don't want
Sure.
to call it a semi squash. It wasn't a squash because
Mm.
it was a real match, and we got to see Gunther, and we got to see the chops, which I've been missing on Friday nights with him gone. And we only watch SmackDown. We don't watch Raw, so sometimes it's brutal not having Gunther on the show, and you've got everybody else. But yeah, from my perspective, I think it was a solid showing. I think this is like a solid match. Maybe not Gunther's best stuff, but even his okay stuff is usually one of the better matches on the card.
It was Gunther doing what he's supposed to do because you can't make every match like so close that the guy who wins barely escaped. There are matches where Gunther should look like he's dominant, and this was one of them. But that doesn't mean that Ali just rolled over for him and was a jobber. I mean, Mustafa Ali, he's doing the quick strike stuff early. Um, he crawls towards the ropes when Gunther gets him in a Boston Crab. So Gunther drags him into the middle, turns it into an FTF. But Ali fights out of it. They fight on the top turnbuckle, and so to avoid what would have been a superplex by Gunther on Mustafa Ali. He sunset flips, goes to the floor, and now he's standing under Gunther, who's still on the second rope. He's able to power bomb Gunther off of that, which is neat. Then he hits his 450 splash, gets a 2.5 count. So like he had his moments where he was able to show what he could do. But yeah, wins. Gunther wins also as the monster heel, but as the guy who fits his character. He's trying to bring respect back to pro wrestling. So he doesn't win by cheating. He doesn't win by using a foreign object. He doesn't win because he gets help from the outside. I still get a kick out of Kaiser doing Gunther's introduction.
Right.
So Kaiser and Vinci are there. They're grabbing the mic, doing the introduction. But then they let Gunther go to the ring, and Kaiser and Vinci stay in the back. So they're not ganging up on the other guy. So Gunther is Gunther is for you and me probably a baby face, right? We like seeing the guy. We like how he wrestles, and he does traditional baby face stuff like just be his own man. But in the current WWE climate, he's a heel. And so he played the monster heel tonight. Mustafa Ali was a good opponent for him to do that against, especially in this setting in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Uh, Fun little match and one that was not tweener.
Right. For sure. All right, Dom. So moving along here, I have a match that kind of stuck out to me.
Okay,
That
we
was
got five
very
other matches. Go ahead.
yeah, one that really stuck out to me that was very surprising. Um and I wrote in the initial notes bathroom break in the beginning,
Okay.
but really got moving along, and we have a title change. It's Asuka versus Bianca Belair. Asuka goes over and is the
Mhm.
new women's champion, I believe, Raw women's champion.
Raw Women's Champion, yes.
And I was floored by this because Bianca Belair had quite a run with her
Yep.
title,
More than a
and
year.
I didn't expect her to drop it. And she'd already faced Asuka in WrestleMania, and I was like, they really just threw this one together, didn't they? Um,
Hmm.
we don't watch a lot of Raw,
No.
but really impressive stuff from Bianca Belair from whenever I've seen her in pay per views. I'd say she's probably one of the top women workers in the company, and it makes sense that she had the title.
Yes.
We see Asuka throw some spray her in the
The
eye,
Mist.
or I should say, rub the spray from her eyes into the spray from her hand into Bianca Belair's eyes, and yeah, Asuka goes over and is the Raw Women's Champion.
The title belts are weirdly named for Raw and SmackDown because each of the champions got drafted onto the other program. So we've seen Bianca Belair for a few weeks now
Mm,
on SmackDown. Um, Asuka does take the belt from her. You're right, a match that started fast, but after about a minute, I wrote that it slows noticeably to a crawl. And I'm
mhm.
looking at this going, there's no way these were the same two competitors who put on such a great match at WrestleMania. Because their WrestleMania match where Bianca won was really a fantastic match. It was a WrestleMania worthy match. Bianca Belair, an enigma, and I'll tell you why. Like you're saying, great worker. She can do the gymnastics, even though she's a bigger wrestler, solid, sturdy. She was a collegiate athlete. Um, the crowd is not behind her. This has been a few weeks in a row. The crowd has not been behind Bianca Belair. They were dead for. I watched SmackDown last night just for the heck of it, even though it was taped 6 days prior at a house show because everybody was flying over Tuesday, Wednesday to get into Saudi Arabia. Bianca's not getting crowd reactions. And even tonight, at one point she did, she springs up when she's got Asuka in the corner and starts doing the punches where the crowd counts along. Not a lot of counting going on. Like Bianca is not getting crowd reactions. We noticed that in the pay per view 3 weeks ago, Backlash in Puerto Rico, where surprisingly Io Sky got the crowd reaction and Bianca did not get really a babyface cheer. I don't know what's up with her. She, like you're saying, she works well. She's enjoyable to watch in these matches. She seems to have a look and a persona to her. Maybe it's the fact that she's not real good on the mic.
I was
She
gonna, I was gonna make that same call out that people were booing her again, a little bit like John Cena stuff, where she's a
okay?
big, big athlete doing all the right stuff, but the crowd is like, meh, on her. And I wrote she needs a heel turn.
She needs
She's
something,
getting
right?
booed, and the gimmick of her coming out and dancing and twirling the hair, maybe that's what it is. Like, that's not,
Hmm.
people just need to, I don't know. I think it's a Vince thing. He had everybody dancing. So, he always has too many people dancing too much.
okay.
So maybe that's the thing, is the dance, she coming out and she's like dancing, and then she's twirling the hair, and then she's like dancing around, and like the, I don't know. I don't, maybe that's why the crowd's rejecting her. I like her because I only see her in pay-per-views and I don't hear her talk. I don't know much about her character, but
Hmm.
and she's good. Like, she's good in the ring.
Yeah, she
Uh,
is good in the ring. Her and Asuka do some fantastic reversals at a
I'll
few points in the match, right?
I'll even pull a Jim Cornette line and steal this from him. But Asuka and Bianca Belair, they work like men, which is a
Okay.
compliment.
Okay.
Um, they're both physically wrestling and strong and doing the things that make them kind of work more like men than like the diva-y stuff, or which we kind of saw a little bit of that earlier with Trish Stratus and
Or but yeah, but before jumping into that next match, Asuka and Bianca, You brought up the John Cena comparison. Cena was getting heat, though. Cena was a clear crowd split, but the people cheering him were cheering, and the people booing him were booing. Bianca's getting nothing.
Yeah.
She's getting nothing. It's like she's not out there. For some reason, she's not connecting one way or the other. And maybe that's a good call that you're bringing up. Maybe a heel turn would be some way to get her to connect with the crowd on some level, because she is so good in the ring, but getting she's not getting any sort of real reaction. It's almost like the other person in the ring is carrying the match, which you shouldn't need to do with your champ, well, now ex-champ, and with someone who's really good in the ring. Bianca can wrestle.
Yeah. Um, yeah, Bianca getting booed is definitely a big takeaway.
Getting the silent treatment.
Which is worse than booed.
Worse. It's worse. It is worse. You're right. If she were
Silence,
getting booed, it'd be something.
yeah. Silence, unless you're in Japan, silence is really a bad sign.
Yeah.
She did get some noise. I do want to call out a spot, and one of my favorites.
Okay.
A real cheap way to get some heat from the crowd. 10 punches in the corner. The people love to count. So she did the 10 punches. 1, 2, 3. And they counted along. And it's like, okay, you need some of those simple triggers for the crowd to start cheering, especially when you're in silence. I don't know if that was one where she just like, let me try the 10 punches, or if it was
which is a good veteran move on her part. If she like called that spot with Asuka, look, we got to do the counting spot in the corner. That's a good spot to call. This match got a lot better towards the end. It almost looks like they were filling time for a while, and I don't know why. And there was really no reason to. It's as if they had the finish plan, but nothing else, and they were just kind of idling until they could go home, which is unfortunate because each of these women in the ring can wrestle. This match went 15 minutes. It felt a lot longer though, but each of these women is capable of wrestling a good, fast-paced 15-minute match. Like there was nobody in this match that needed to be hidden. You didn't have to hide somebody's weakness here. It was just a weird match until the finish.
Which actually was a good kind of weird. It went from a weird match where it was, this ain't working, to, okay, now we're getting somewhere. When it actually started to get a lot better toward the end. And then even the finish was like, whoa, like that's it?
It was a twist on something, right? Like you mentioned it. It was the mist, but not like Bianca ducked the mist spray from Asuka. And then Bianca goes for the kiss of death, but Asuka slithers out. Asuka gets an armbar. Bianca powers up and slams Asuka. Neither wrestler has an advantage, though. Bianca's doing a great job of selling her arm. It's just been in an armbar. She's selling that she's trying to get the feeling back in her arm. She can't make a quick cover. That's the kind of thing that doesn't get done often enough. Like Bianca is really good in the ring at this kind of stuff. Then as Asuka's just kind of against the ropes, recovering herself, she wipes some of the mist from her mouth into her hand. And as she stands up and Bianca tries to get her in another kiss of death up on her shoulders at fireman's carry, Asuka out of the view of the ref, smears her hand with the mist across Bianca's eyes. And now Bianca releases the kiss of death and is grabbing her eyes. Asuka the kick to the back of the head and the pinfall. So a neat twist on the mist thing, which, I like when they take some. It's almost like the WWE can figure out when fans who actually watch the product, watch the shows, are getting tired of something. Like maybe they figured out that we're getting tired of the mist because it's the same way every time. So they found a way to do it differently this time.
Yeah. That is true. They finally did something where it was a little bit more unique, where she just rubbed it in her eyes.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch. Do you want to head to that match next?
Ooh. let's stick with one of the main events here.
Okay, I will mention something. One more thing
Oh,
about the women. It was good to see 3 women's matches on this card, but I noticed right away in that Trish Stratus Becky Lynch match, the women came out in full body suits,
yeah.
no skin showing except the face. So that's a Saudi Arabia thing. So that's kind of the compromise culturally there. I mean, the WWE was able to do a lot with this show, bringing Sami Zayn over finally, bringing 3 women's matches out of a 7-match card.
Mhm.
But the compromise was okay, the women have to be fully covered. It's still athletic attire, because they have to perform in the ring. But that was kind of the cultural compromise. I didn't mind that because the women were still allowed to have their personalities, the hair color, some of the colorfulness with the attire, and they still were able to wrestle and perform. But that's one thing I noticed right away. I'm like, wait a minute, why are they wearing full body suits? Oh, Saudi Arabia. Okay.
Why are they both wearing full body suits? It does look
Right.
odd because usually they're wearing like next to nothing, and then suddenly they're full body suit.
To be honest, they're wearing what the men usually wear,
Right? Yeah,
which is like a bathing suit. They look like they're at the beach, a bathing suit and boots.
yeah, right.
You know.
So,
So
yeah.
where do you? We don't want to go to the other women's matches. Were kind of, one was a squash and one was. So where do you want to go next on the card here?
So moving along.
We didn't really touch on the World Championship match or on the Brock Cody match. So which one of those do you think was a bigger deal for what happened?
So, um, let's jump into the Brock Cody match. I think that's probably the more storyline based one that we're going to see a lot of here. This
It
was
feels like we need a rubber match, right? Because they've now gone over the other one time each.
yeah. Brock Lesnar gets Cody Rhodes to not tap out,
Yep.
but he gets him to pass out, and then when he passes out, that's that.
Yep.
So,
Ref checks the arm. Cody can't respond. Brock wins via submission in about 10 minutes, so not a long match.
right.
Enough action in it for you?
Well, I'll be honest with you. The
I love honesty.
crowd was hot,
Yeah.
and they were ready to go for it. Um, and at the end, there was some things I liked, some things I didn't like. Some things I did like. Somebody threw trash in the ring at the end at Brock,
I
which
saw a water bottle. Yes.
reminds me of stuff from like WCW in the '90s with Hulk Hogan when he
The NWO.
makes the NWO. People throwing trash in the ring. I almost saw a bottle and then something else thrown. So it was like,
Okay.
yes, I love it. Like that means you did a good job from getting the crowd really into it
Yep.
when they're throwing trash at you. So that was good. And then things that are bad that just kind of annoy me. Like,
Okay.
how come people just can't tap out? Like, why is it like, oh, well, he didn't tap out? It's like every MMA fight, when somebody loses, they tap out.
Sure.
That's like what a real fight is like. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna break their arm, so they tap out. Like they
Mm-hmm.
commit.
Live to fight another day.
Yeah, and they don't get their arm broken. It's a normal human reaction. For some reason, the WWE they're in so much pain that they pass out.
Yep.
So that's something for me. That's a modern pro wrestling thing that's really
Yes.
annoying. Baby faces just can't tap out. Like, no,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a broken arm and you're in this clutch by this monster for this long, yes, it's understandable. It's ridiculous you're even wrestling. That's the whole thing, you know?
And that's definitely a pro wrestling thing. The length of time that some of the moves take. Cody's in that Kimura clutch for a long time. The first time When Brock finally wins the match, it's the second time he's been in the Kimura clutch. Cody starts off kind of favoring his left arm, which is in that titanium cast because of the storyline that had been taking place on Raw, where Brock broke his arm, gave him a radial fracture in his left forearm. And then suddenly Cody realizes that I've got a titanium cast on my left arm. This could be a weapon. It takes him about 3 minutes into the match before he starts using this titanium cast as a weapon. Which is neat. But then at the same time, Cody's also selling that, oh, my arm is broken and it hurts when I do stuff with my arm. Like he goes for the crossroads, hits it, and then winces and grabs his left arm after hitting the crossroads, that spinning neck breaker onto Brock. He picks him up again, hits it again, winces, grabs his left arm, goes for a third time. That's when Brock gets the Kimura lock on that injured arm the first time. And Cody has to pivot out of it. But then, eventually a little later, Cody's just back to using the arm as a weapon and hits another crossroads and then doesn't wince at all. Goes right for a cover that Brock kicks out of. It's like, so now he's not selling the arm anymore. It's like he went from doing the thing that made sense psychologically to doing the thing that doesn't make sense. So that's not a botch where you can look at a spot and say, oh, his foot was supposed to be here and he missed, or he missed. That just to me is a psychology botch.
Psychology botch. I like it.
It's a psychology, but it's a psych botch. And he's especially since and it's more noticeable because he started off doing it correctly. Cody did. And then by the end of the match, he's not doing it anymore. It's like, what, did your arm magically heal after 5 minutes of the match and now it's not a problem for you anymore? So,
yeah.
Besides the psych botch, I did like the match. I like that they didn't drag it out too long. I mean, the thing was that obviously that Cody was wounded prey and Brock was just going to be the predator here. And so this match didn't need to go 20 minutes. It went 10. Great.
And I feel like that gives us the opportunity to continue with this rivalry. There'll be a rubber match. I'm somewhat interested in it. And this is a Brock match. This is what he does. He comes out, he does 10 minutes. He's been doing this for years. They're all the same style. I think they're pretty good for pay-per-views. And, it's just the style that he's picked up for his pay-per-view matches. I think they're good enough. They're never classics. They're usually right in the middle. They're a solid match. And the crowd usually is into it because it's usually pretty fast.
Crowd likes Brock. They are into him. And let's talk what happened in the 10 minutes here. Brock's entrance, he comes out first. He's getting cheered. I'm noticing a lot of cheers there.
Yeah.
This was the Cena crowd you're talking about. Let's go Cena. Cena sucks. Where half the crowd seemed like they were on Brock's side, half were not on Brock's side, but everybody was on a side. So it was loud for Brock at his entrance, even though it was mixed. And by the end of it, Brock was kind of getting more boos, especially when he got up at the end of the match and looked like he was going to stalk over to Cody and do something post-match. Like the crowd was not down with that. And so eventually Brock just, raises the arms and he's getting the mixed reaction and he just walks out of the ring. With the water bottle in there that somebody threw that you noticed. Yeah. So Brock is over whether people are cheering or booing. Brock is over. And like you're saying, I think it's good that Cody is in this program because this is a hot program that Cody doesn't have to carry. He gets to work off of somebody who is going to be his equal. This is not Cody just fighting mid-carders on Monday Night Raw, trying to build up the fact that he's back. This is the program that Cody needs, I think.
Yep. So we'll see another match between these two.
I hope.
And, not as crazy as when Cody was hurt against Seth Rollins and he had a physical injury with his shoulder, but good enough. Okay enough. Moving on here, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier here. So
you want to go opener here? Or do you want to go somewhere else?
Let's go back to the women's match we were discussing earlier.
Trish
Ooh,
and Becky Lynch. Trish
which
Stratus and Becky Lynch.
I don't have any notes for because I had to step away and do something. So, Dom, why don't you give us a little breakdown of Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch?
This match goes 15 minutes, just about bell to bell here. Trish winds up winning, and she wins with some assistance from Zoe Stark, who's a very recent call up to the main roster from NXT. She was part of the draft. She's had at least one match, I think, on Raw. So Zoe Stark was hiding under the ring. Uh, Late in this match, Trish goes to the outside and she looks like she's peeking under the ring for something, maybe a weapon, a kendo stick, a chair, maybe a table, who knows. Becky Lynch pulls her out though before she can get anything, throws her back in the ring. Turns out Trish was not going for a weapon. She was going for, well, maybe a human weapon, Zoe Stark, to give her cue that, hey, I need you. Well, Zoe Stark emerges from under the ring, attacks Becky while the ref is tied up with Trish in the ring. Um, Hits Becky with some sort of, I don't know if it's supposed to be a face buster, neck breaker, whatever. She picks her up, drops her across her knee, face first somewhere. Um, Becky gets legitimately busted in the nose from this. And you can see on the slow mo, because they did a replay, where after this move, and maybe because they haven't worked together before, this was like a semi botch here. Zoe Stark really catches Becky in the face with that thigh and that knee on this move. Becky reaches for her nose. By the time Becky gets thrown back into the ring, where Trish hits her with that I don't know what they call it. It's springing off the ropes with a bulldog for the pinfall. You could see that Becky is bleeding from her nose. I don't know if it's broken. I mean, it's probably broken because just getting a slight bloody nose doesn't do that. I think that was a legit busted nose um, on that Zoe Stark spot. So, hey, this is another rivalry that looks like we're going to have more of it. Trish Becky looks like it's going to have some legs, and now with Zoe Stark involved. And kudos to Becky Lynch for getting busted in the face, busted nose there the hard way, and bleeding the hard way on TV. I bet they weren't expecting that in Saudi Arabia. Not only women wrestling, but women bleeding.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't think
Becky
that
Lynch
was.
gets some color.
I love the hard way bleeding versus the blade jobs. Like when it just happens holistically, it feels like it makes a lot more sense rather than like, oh, the guy
Mhm.
like runs into the pole and then suddenly he takes a knife and
Yeah,
slashes his forehead and there's blood everywhere. And you're like, you just
yeah,
stabbed yourself in the forehead, huh?
yep.
Um,
But it was a botch. I mean, that was not supposed to end up in Becky with what might be a broken nose.
I saw Trish at one point because I only caught the very end of the match.
Okay.
I think she was kind of adjusting a denture, which is interesting to see. But she's a little bit older for a pro wrestler, but she's like putting a flipper in or something, and I noticed that.
Maybe she's wearing a mouth guard like some of the pro athletes do.
No, I mean it was her teeth.
It was her teeth.
Uh,
Okay.
it was uh, there. It was either they're all that was it. That was her teeth that she was ramming back into her
Hey,
face.
pro wrestling's a tough sport like hockey. Maybe she's had a few teeth knocked out in the ring over the
Oh
years.
yeah, for sure. I'm
I
sure.
was I was mentioning when you jump back in there the Zoe Stark botch. Did you notice any other sloppiness in this match? Because I did.
Yeah, I didn't see most of the match. So maybe if you want to touch on the sloppiness.
They're trying to do a spot where um, Trish kind of handstands when Becky's up on the turnbuckle as if she's going to do a Hurricane Rana. The first time they do it, though, Trish doesn't get her feet in the right position. And so you see now Becky Lynch grabbing Trish's feet and positioning Trish's legs on her so that she can take the Hurricane Rana off the second turnbuckle. And it was, oh boy.
You
They
know,
go back to the spot a little later, though. Um, and this time Trish gets her legs in better position, but like the second time they do the spot, Trish is not supposed to hit it. Becky's supposed to catch her for real and then wind up hitting a spot off of her with it, which she does. But the first time, like Trish was supposed to nail that move. And it was the positioning wasn't there, the timing wasn't there. Becky had to like save the spot and kind of execute the move on herself there. So that was a little botchy. So you look like you wanted a comment there.
We see some stuff, and we saw it with Lita too, with some of these wrestlers that are female wrestlers that are older,
Mm-hmm.
that are kind of trying to do the stuff they were doing in their mid-20s. And it's either looking slow or specifically Lita was doing all the flip. She's trying to do all the flippy stuff, and it's just gone.
Yep.
She's an older woman. It is what it is. And I feel like they just need to go back and they need to watch the Fabulous Moolah and watch the way that she worked when she was a very old woman. I really liked the style, but it was more like a bruiser. Like,
yeah,
do some more bruising stuff, because you have to switch your style for what you're capable of doing. If this moves aren't looking sharp and crisp when you're doing like a handstand Hurricane Rana, do some more simple. Don't do a handstand Hurricane Rana.
Yeah.
Right? How hard is that?
Very hard. Most people can't do that in their prime.
Right.
The handstand or the Hurricane Rana.
Yeah, like just do some more simple stuff that gives it a little bit more realism than, oh, okay, here's this old hag beating on this young thing, like play it up like Moolah did. She was just stomping on people's hands when they were down. She would just run around the ring, and it looked horrible, and it was simple enough, and you were just like, damn, Moolah is a tough old broad. So
the Trish Lita problem also was probably the years of layoff.
yeah,
You're just not in ring shape that quickly. So yeah, I mean, Trish seems like she's in shape, still has the look. So if she can adjust, like you're saying, her in-ring style, where she can still be effective and not have these, and not, do things that she's not quite capable of executing anymore that are obvious to the crowd.
and she's a heel. She
Yeah.
can do the slow stuff. She can stomp
Yeah.
on people's hands as they're down on all fours and stomp on their hands and
Yeah.
do mean slow stuff, because she's the heel. She doesn't have to do a Hurricane Rana as the heel. My God.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, moving on.
So that was a match that cheers to Becky for taking it the hard way and for a pretty decent finish and for trying to elevate a recent call up in Zoe Stark. But most of the match was maybe not pay-per-view quality.
So let's go.
So like you were saying, moving on. We've got 2 matches left. Well, we got the World Championship, the World Heavyweight Championship match, which led off the show, and then one more women's match, which lasted. I was deciding whether to write down 1 minute or 2 minutes because I was tracking by minutes, not by seconds.
Yeah, let's go, and maybe we can do these guys.
Rhea Ripley beats Natalya in a minute. There you go. That's that match. Riptide pump handle slam after distraction immediately from Dominic Mysterio, who was out there to keep Rhea Ripley heel. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the crowd might start cheering for Rhea if this prison break guy is not out there.
Yeah, that match was what it was, and I almost feel like, I guess because they have to defend every title, that's why they had that match. But that one,
maybe.
And Natty's just like, hey, Natty, go get your paycheck, right? Like,
sure.
She's a solid mid-card worker. She's not going to be a champion anytime soon. She's done everything she pretty much can in the WWE. So they're like, all right, we'll throw her up against Rhea here. But maybe we could just pivot here, and shift.
There's not a lot to say about that match. We've already talked longer than the match lasted. So you want to close it out with what opened the show, which was a pretty good wrestling match here, World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah. Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles. We kind of did them a little bit of a disservice here as we went through here because this might have been. You can make an argument that this was the best match of the night.
Okay.
Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles. So Seth Rollins wins this new title they've created.
Yep.
And it's a tournament style that has been going on for a couple weeks now. And Seth and AJ both were the last two remaining in the tournament. And yeah, so Seth Rollins wins. Dom, what did you think of this match?
I like that early on they were taking the anti-spot fest approach. Like early on was about these guys countering each other's attempts at big spots early. Um, Seth sliding under the bottom rope to avoid a crossbody dive by AJ. Seth Rollins is out on the floor. He sees AJ going for that, pull yourself over the top rope, crossbody dive onto the floor. Seth slides back under the ring before AJ can do it. So AJ kind of springs over and just lands on the apron. And, they're doing, aha, I saw that coming. So anti stuff like that. Leapfrogging and duck unders on some of this stuff. AJ slides out of a superplex attempt and then pulls Seth off the turnbuckle. It was like an anti-spot fest match early, and I wrote that down. Anti-spot fest match early. And then a little later, all right, now it's a spot fest. Because eventually these guys are very athletic. They've got the opening match of the night. They've got to get the crowd into it. You put out maybe your guys who are going to work the fastest paced match for the opener.
Yeah.
Just in case the crowd's a little dead, you make sure that they have lots of action in the ring to go for. Seth Rollins eventually wins this. He wriggles out of a calf crusher, AJ's submission move, that leg hold. Seth turns it into a pedigree after wriggling out of it and hits the stomp for the pinfall.
Yeah.
Pretty good finish. Lots of action in the match. I did not get the bell time and the finish time for this, but this may have been the second longest match on the card. Nothing else was more than 15 minutes or so, except for the main event, which was 25-ish.
Yeah, this one went pretty long. And I do have to say, I liked it. I think it was one of the best matches of the night.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk about, and it was predictable, I was like, you can't go wrong with these two, AJ Styles and Seth Rollins. There is a couple things I liked, specifically the spots. I love in the beginning the two slow headlocks. So there's like a headlock and they're working real slow, and then there's a reversal, and then like they're doing a little bit of stuff, and then there's another headlock. So they exchange headlocks, which is great. I was like, yes, we're doing it slow and steady.
Maybe the first time exchanging headlocks got a cheer on a podcast. I liked it too, because that's how guys would start off a match. You'd both be fresh. You'd kind of be feeling each other out, try for a hold here or there, see what the other guys got today.
Yeah, they did.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, they did like a real pro wrestling match. They did the standard. I liked the middle turnbuckle spot. So I've never really seen Styles threw Seth into the middle turnbuckle in like a real awkward fashion. And I haven't really seen the middle turnbuckle get used a lot. Usually it's like the top, or they throw them in the corner and do something. So that was just something I'd never seen before. Okay. And then for a high spot, I did pop for the inverted suplex.
Superplex.
Yeah, the inverted superplex from the corner was crazy. I can't I don't. That's just such a nutty spot.
Yep.
And it takes
Seth executes it on AJ.
Yes, Seth executes it on AJ, but it's really a lot of AJ being great in order to take that. And then one more thing.
Well, you missed that spot though. After that inverted superplex, Seth holds on to the face lock, picks him up and side slams him and gets a 2.5 count on AJ. That was the first real near fall of the match. There was like a few 1 counts and 2 counts that were strong kickouts. That was the first, that close of the match. Yeah. So yeah, good call there. Yeah, that was a great sequence by like you're saying, by both guys. You don't see moves like that, and you don't see sequences like that.
And one more thing I wanted to point out about this match specifically, and I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but boy, Triple H, he just can't stop putting himself over. He's narrating the beginning of the show, and you're like, dude, you're the booker. You gotta narrate the beginning of the show like your voice. And then you got him in there giving him the title like he's Dana White, doing that stuff. And there was a pedigree during the match, and I'm like, I wonder who wrote that in. Oh, why don't you do pedigree? Yeah.
Each guy does a pedigree.
Right. Both do the pedigree.
Yes.
Well, Triple H is out there because it's like his bell. Even though he can't wrestle anymore, he's always just sneaking around the bell. So
he does hand the belt to Seth Rollins. He presents it to him afterwards. And they made a point to mention this on the announce table. Those two have a long history. Seth Rollins was the inaugural NXT champion, which was Triple H's baby back then. And he's now the first world heavyweight champion bringing this belt back there. Yeah, that was a cool spot. One thing I wanted to mention from this match, since I've mentioned psych botches before, second half of this match, Seth Rollins does a dive on the outside, and they pretend that he now hurts his left knee when he lands on the dive. Even though if you watch it, if he hurt anything, it was his right knee. He didn't hurt either knee, but it was plain that he hurt his left knee. And he stuck with it. He sold the left leg the rest of the match. And AJ sold it too when he went for the calf crusher. He did it on Seth's left leg. Like, yeah, these guys get it. They're not just spot monkeys. Like, they get it. Great two guys to have as your opening match. You had called this when we talked briefly on our last Don't Bury the Lead. You know, what match you're most looking forward to, and you said this might be the match of the night. And purely in ring work, yeah, this probably was. I mean, the main event I thought was fantastic with everything they threw into it. But just the one-on-one match, yeah, this was the best one-on-one match of the night. And these guys brought it early. This was a good start to the whole program.
yeah, pretty good pay-per-view. I will have to say, it being in the afternoon probably is the reason why I liked it more
Okay.
so than at night, because this show went a little long. Like, I felt like for example, Rhea Ripley versus Natty. Cut that next
Wait a
time.
minute. There it goes.
I would say it should be 0 minutes. It shouldn't have it should have been not applicable minutes. It shouldn't have existed. They shouldn't have had that match on there.
Because they didn't put the U.S. title up at this night, so it's not like they had to get every title on here. So, like, why do that to either one of them just for a squash on a pay-per-view?
It doesn't make Rhea look any better. It doesn't make it obviously makes Natty look not so hot because she gets squashed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just filler for. And the shows are long enough. It was long enough. I was thinking, man, we're getting there. And the main event was a lot of minutes. I'm not sure how long it was, but it was a lot.
I think it was 25-ish because they did slow play it with all the heat that guys were getting early. Like, the bell rings, but it's about 2 or 3 minutes before people actually lock up.
Yep.
Because they're stalking around the ring, like you're saying. Sammy's getting cheered. KO tags in Sammy before they ever lock up, just because Sammy's getting so much cheer. Like, all right, you want to start the match? Go ahead. Roman starts and then goes, he's like, no, I'm not starting this match. He tags in Solo, So there's a lot of stalking, a lot of, feeling each other out from a distance. But yeah, that match winds up getting bell to bell 25-ish minutes. Which it deserved. That match was not dragging.
No.
The pace changes in that match were for a reason. It didn't seem to me that they were stalling. It didn't seem to me when they picked up the pace that like they were rushing. It seemed to me that everything in that match took place the way it was supposed to.
All right, Dom. So I know we had a pretty long show and a lot to talk about, and I think we covered it to the best of our ability here.
You got any cheap heat? Or are we going to save Cheap Heat for something else?
I do have other things to do right now. So
Okay.
we usually do the Italian goodbye. We do some cheap heat. Um,
We'll save that for a SmackDown.
we'll-
For this, don't bury the lead. Hey, Night of Champions was a pretty good pay-per-view because again, the main event saved it.
yeah, I think the main event carries it. Yeah, that's the big takeaway. The main event, not the Cody Brock one, but
The real
uh,
main event.
the Bloodline main event.
Sammy and KO going over Roman and Solo with the Usos interfering, all of that stuff. Main event saves the pay-per-view.
Yeah, it saved it because if that wasn't there, we'd probably be like, that was probably not a great show.
Yes, we
Uh,
got a squash match, we got a that thing, and yeah.
so the main event, yeah, it certainly comes in, it saves it. I think it was a solid show. So as we're wrapping up here, and I hate to be so abrupt as we're wrapping up because we usually do the Italian goodbye, but we're on Facebook and we're on Twitter. We're trying other new live streams. I've seen a bunch of people popping in and out with Facebook, so we'll see where that goes.
Fantastic.
But we'll continue to stay on YouTube as our home, and then branch out to these different services. And we'll be here every Friday night after the bell and after every pay-per-view. And we might be doing AEW tomorrow. I think it's
Ooh,
looking like we are. So
okay.
just
That's some good news. That's maybe some breaking news there. I like it.
So thanks so much for joining, Dom. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching out there, and have a great rest of your evening.